Welcome to Who on the Week, your weekly dose of sports and advertising.
I'm Mike Shields of Next to Media.
And I'm Matt Ulrich, media analyst at EDO, the TV Outcomes Company.
All right, Matt, as much as I want to talk Tommy DeVito for the next half hour, we should probably talk about the game of the week, which was the Bills Chiefs game. First of all, he was offsides, correct?
Uh, yes, he was. He was. He was offsides. Everyone knows he was offsides.
He was
Yeah,
offsides. It was a
yeah.
wild ending. It was remarkable for a number of reasons. It was a good game. It kind of probably saved Buffalo's season, but you also saw Patrick Mahomes, who's like this, got this perfectly refined character, and everybody loves him, going crazy and losing it a little bit, which is unlike him. But I imagine, as mad as he might have been, the brands that were a part of that game were probably thrilled because that was a pretty riveting game that the whole country got to see and very entertaining and a big audience.
Mahomes was melting down, but the brands were celebrating. I think. I mean, those two teams, other than the Eagles, Bills, Chiefs are two of the biggest draws in the league. That late window on CBS, which is CBS's real prime window. The Bills Eagles a few weeks ago drew 31 million viewers. Chiefs Chargers earlier in the season drew 25 million viewers. So I'm sure advertisers were not complaining like Mahomes
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. It's funny, we get caught up in how big the numbers are usually for the primetime games, but those late Sunday afternoon windows are enormous audiences often. And yeah, that clearly on the CBS has been on a roll lately. What did you see brand wise that stuck out to you during that game?
We saw a lot of restaurant ads. So we saw some quick serve restaurant. I mean, we saw Chipotle, we saw Burger King in there multiple times. Burger King really caught our eye at EDO. So we're measuring spikes in search engagement that we are attributing to the ads in the game. And Burger King actually, ran 3 ads during the Chiefs Bills game, and it was the exact same 15-second ad. But the last airing of that 15-second ad was for their new Melts product. That ad had a search engagement spike that was larger than the first two combined. And why was that? It's because they aired that after the 2-minute warning of the Bills Chiefs game, during the tension, when everyone was saying, "Okay, I am, in the middle of this big, viewing experience. Let's take a break for a second. Ad break. What's on TV? Burger King ad, and we're going to search for Burger King." And whether they got one of those melts or something else from Burger King, Burger King really benefited from that ad placement and the tension in the game in a positive way.
That's interesting. First of all, you might think that retail would dominate this time of year, but that you're seeing so much fast food. But then, yeah, I know that brands can pick the particular parts of the game their ads run in, but you can't script that moment. But that's interesting that you caught people when they were, waiting for this game to take on. The 2-minute warning gives them a couple of seconds to go on their phones and search. That's kind of it's kind of the media value that you almost can't quantify. But that's pretty wild that worked out. What else stuck out for you?
Well, I think it's just to that point, it's really just the sequence. It's hitting someone. I think in media and
Yeah,
advertising, it's frequency. That three frequency for that same audience. Some would say maybe that's you're spending too much money on that same audience with the same message. But what Burger King showed is they were ready for that moment. And if the game was a blowout, Burger King might have seen a lower engagement
yeah.
volume score in EDO's data on that last ad. It would not have paid off, but they took a bit of a risk with the frequency with that same ad. They took 15-second ads, so it's cheaper per unit. So that was part of their
Sure,
strategy.
sure.
And then they cashed in when there was a great game. And so I think you ride the games that are less competitive for these moments when it really pays off to have that strategy. And I think that's what EDO saw, right? It was Burger King, but it's also this ad strategy with 15 seconds
Yeah.
and the sequence that caught our eye.
That's interesting because we grumble so much about the frequency problem in CTV, but this was actually a really smart strategic usage of frequency in a single game. With it also helps that it's live and a massive audience. I'm told we have a special guest this week, Matt.
We do. So we've brought in the head of our auto practice, Will Price, to talk through how, just as the NFL playoffs are approaching, the NFL season is heating up, the auto industry and that holiday sales season is also heating up.
All right, excited. Well, welcome to the show. Let's chat.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is a critical period for all the auto brands to continue on the football puns. This is fourth quarter. This is 2 minute drive. This is when they're pulling out all the stops. In a couple of weeks, we're going to tally up the numbers, and there's going to be a sales leader. We're going to be looking at percentage increase in sales, and it's really going to be a time when we look at who won the year in auto brands, whether it's non-luxury or luxury. So it is a crazy time. We're seeing a completely different environment than we did last year.
So is that simply because people are spending again and people feel a little bit better about the economy? Is it the backlog of demand from COVID? What's kind of driving that in your mind?
Yeah, it's a few things. Inventory levels last year are not what they were this year. So inventory levels are coming back.
Right.
So we have more selection, more options. We're seeing incentives that we haven't seen in some time. A lot of auto brands are getting a little bit more aggressive. We're seeing all these different types of offers. Some brands are touting multiple offers within the same programming. So what's really cool about the EDO data is that we can see which offers in relatively real time audiences are resonating most with, which ones are driving them to go from watching that ad to picking up a second device and seeking that brand out online.
So speaking of that, what have you seen? There's been lots of brands all at once during this crunch period. What have you seen brand wise that's kind of been popping for you guys?
So a few come to mind. So a couple things at play. Both, whether it's luxury or non-luxury, pushing these year-end sales events, these retail messages. But at the same time, they're also using live sports like NFL, knowing their highly engaged audiences to launch new products. So think of a brand like Polestar, which is sort of doing both. They're launching their car. They figured out a way to beautifully showcase that car in these really highly engaged environments, but they're also coupling it with a really attractive offer that I think audiences may not realize fits with a luxury brand. They're getting really creative with some of the federal tax credits around electric vehicles, structuring a lease offer that's really compelling. So they're showing incredible success within these environments. I think a Polestar ad is typically around 300 to 350% more effective than the
Wow.
average non or average luxury ad within NFL programming. So they're finding a way to get audiences to lean in, doing sort of that coupling of new product as well as a offer that audiences are finding compelling.
Yeah, those are not the kind of tactics you usually associate with the luxury categories. That does stand out. Any other brands in this category that have really been doing some interesting stuff?
Yeah, so the other side is launching new products, leveraging these environments to showcase their latest and greatest offerings. Mazda is a brand that comes to mind. They've launched their CX-90. It's a really compelling product in the three-row SUV category. It's a really hot category, and they're finding incredible success. So similar metrics to Polestar for the non-lux category, 330% more effective than the non-luxury ad within NFL programming. So audiences are curious about what Mazda has to offer. They've positioned this car as a car that shouldn't exist. They've framed it as a car that feels different than a three-row SUV should feel, and they're finding success. So audiences are curious and they're seeking Mazda out online.
All right. Well, that great stuff. Awesome to hear from that your perspective on this side of things, Matt. What else should folks look for? How should we close things out here?
EDO's coming out with its 2024 predictions, so we make a few. You can check that out. I'm sure you'll see it on LinkedIn, but you can also check it out on EDO.com for those 2024 predictions.
Thanks, Matt. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good one.